Hi, this is Andy from prothema.com, and I'd like to introduce you to a brand new module we've just finished building for Joomla called the Morph News module. The Morph News module is a highly flexible and configurable module that will allow you to create different types of outputs of your Joomla content by giving you a variety of options to control the different layouts or outputs, or what we call sub-functionality of the module, as well as how you place and position the different elements such as title, image, etc. And that means you can have an image slider or a content scroller like this by using exactly the same module and just changing a couple of the settings. Now the great part about this module is that it uses the Joomla content articles elements, and it gives you, from a modular basis, control over what happens with each of those different elements and where they will then display on the page, or within the module on the page. So here's an example of a Joomla article with a title, category, author, creation date, and then an image with some of the article text, an intro text over here as well. Now what the Morph News module does is it essentially controls how these different elements are output by the module. It'll take the image and resize it based on your settings if you want, and then it'll give you the title, which you can perhaps shorten if you need to, and it gives you a way to decide what the date output is, etc. So let's quickly take a look at a very short overview of this demo. And as I browse down the page, you'll see the number of different outputs and formats of the module. Here's just a list of articles where I'm using the image and intro text, etc. Here's a list of thumbnails, here's a grid, and then here's a scroller. There are a total of 5 different layout options or sub-functionalities within the module at the moment. That is the image slider, the content scroller, then there's the default layout, the grid, and then lastly we have the filterable grid, where you can just add a content filter like this, where the filter navigation itself will automatically be built depending on the categories that you choose in the module. Here's an example of a larger version of the filterable demo, where we're using it to just display an example of a portfolio or something along those lines, where you select the different articles or the different categories with the article should pull from. Here you can see, for example, this module has these 3 categories set, and it builds the navigation over there based on those 3 categories. And then the user can now filter through the different categories using the article filter. And then a different type of header perhaps you could create with the module as well is a content and item scroller, where you have an image, and then on the right you have a title, the meta information, and the intro text. Now you can obviously move these around really easily, and that's what I'm going to show you soon, is how you can control these different elements, and then how you can move, for example, the title below if I wanted to, or swap these around, etc. Right, so let's take a look now at all of the different module instances that are running on the demo I showed you. The demo has a total of 18 instances of the Morph News module, and it's the only module used on the demo to show you the different types of outputs. So if you see one that's loaded there, you can achieve that with this module using the settings in one of these modules, or one of these instances. So if we open up, for example, the let's open the Nevo slider in content. That one is the one that you see on the home page over here, for example. And now if you take a look at this module, you see the layout I've chosen is the image slider Nevo, and then I have a whole lot of options for that. Now the first thing to understand is the sub-functionalities that I spoke about, or the different layouts that you can choose for the front end, and how the module outputs and functions is one of these settings. But you'll notice when I change these, for example, the default doesn't really have any other options. It relies on your standard settings that you have here. And that allows you to create very simple type of modules where you just have a thumbnail and a title, for example, or the coming soon module, or for example the latest articles, etc. Right. Then you can change, for example, a horizontal grid, which just sets a few columns depending on the number of items you've got set as well. If you've got, say, 10 items at 5 columns, it'll make 2 rows of 5 each and a minimum height. And then you can also set a filterable grid, which is the one I showed you where we're doing the portfolio, and the content slider, which is the one I showed before with the image on the left and the elements on the right, and then the image slider Nevo. So those layout options change based on whichever layout you choose. However, if you look at the other 3 options over here, these always remain the same. Essentially, these are the core settings of the module that decide what's going to output where into that layout that you've chosen. So the first one is the article filters, where you can choose to pull articles from a certain section or category. You can set how many to display. You can control the ordering. You can set it to random, or perhaps you wanted to have the latest first for a latest news module. You could also select all authors, individual authors, or multiple authors. You can also select whether to show items from the home page or not. Then the configure article elements allows you to control the different elements coming from the article that you've added and what they should do and how they should look on the page. You see, for example, here for the first set of options is my image. I've set to show an image and I want it to be auto-generated. So it uses the article image that I showed you in the article, and it sets the width to 673 and the height to 300. The Nevo image slider automatically uses this thumb width as the same width for the module itself as well. So that it doesn't matter where you place it, if you just get the width right, everything else is taken care of for you. The image options are quite vast. You can really customize it a lot and decide where you want to crop from, for example, whether it links to a lightbox pop-up or the article page, whether you want to have the overlay on hover, the color of the overlay, which color icon to show as well. Then article title you can shorten, and you can choose whether to link to the article or not. You can also set a custom class on any of these elements to add additional styling. You can shorten the intro as well if you want. You can allow and disallow and then recreate the structure of the intro text. Then the article meta, each of these has a before text, which allows you to add text that you want that instance of the module to display before that element. So for example, written by and the author's name. If you didn't want to have that just the author's name, you could take that out as well, just like that. And then the date format you can also change using standard Linux date formats. And then the read more with its own class or your own text. So that's how you set up and configure the different elements, how they'll behave and display on the page. But now let's take a look at the Elements Layout Builder. This allows you to easily place any of the elements within this structure that you see over here. Now what you see is what you get, because if you have an item placed in here, for example, let's say you have the intro and you have the title over here and the image over here, it'll display exactly like that. The title to the left in one column and the image to the right in the other, with an intro above it. And whatever you place below will be placed below. So essentially it's a full width and then 2 columns and then a full width again. The easiest way to understand how this works is, let's take a look at the this module over here, the item scroller. And you can see it's got an image on the left, and then it's got these elements, the title, the meta information, the intro, and the read more, all on the right of the image. So if we open this module settings and we go to the layout builder, you'll see the similarities immediately. You've got the image on the left with title, meta, intro, and read on. And if I reorder these, it'll reorder them on the page as well. So if I move meta to after the intro, for example, it would do that. The other thing you can do is you can set the different widths of these columns. Automatically, these 2 columns, 1 and 2, are 50-50. But you can enable this. That'll allow you to change this. I think for that module, you can see I use 60 and 40 pretty much. I left 1% of each because it just gives it some spacing on the sides. And obviously I could add anything else I wanted above or below. The one thing to remember is that if it's empty, it's collapsed. This includes the sidebar, sorry, the columns. If I take out one of these tags, this one will then become full width like the other ones as well. So that's how you control the layout of the elements. Over here is where we took a look at where you could configure the different elements and how they output. These are the articles that you pull those articles and their elements from. And over here is really the sub-functionality and how you can control what happens with that module on the front end, whether it's an image slider, etc. And it all pulls from the simple structure of the articles. I hope you enjoyed that. That's the Morph News module. And I hope you enjoyed the video and hope you enjoy using the module. All the best. Take care.